What happens when pop music's most polarizing star sits down with daytime television's toughest interviewer and she attacks his deepest vulnerabilities? You're about to witness a confrontation so brutal, it'll make you question everything you thought you knew about Justin Bieber. Subscribe and let me know in the comments, did Joy go too far this time?
The morning started with anticipation at the View Studios in Manhattan. Justin Bieber, now 31 years old and a new father, was scheduled for what should have been a straightforward promotional interview for his surprise seventh album, Swag, which had just dropped on streaming platforms the night before. Justin walked onto the set looking healthier than he had in months. Gone was the gaunt, tired appearance that had worried fans earlier in the year. His hair was freshly cut, and there was a lightness in his step that hadn't been there during his darker periods. This was a man who seemed to have found his footing again. The studio audience erupted in applause as he made his way to the interview area. Despite all the controversies over the years, Justin Bieber still commanded attention like few others in the entertainment world. He waved with both hands, that familiar boyish smile lighting up his face as he settled into his chair.
Justin Bieber, welcome to The View, Whoopi Goldberg announced warmly. Congratulations on the surprise album drop. How does it feel to be back in the music game? Thank you for having me, Justin replied, his voice clear and confident. It feels incredible, honestly. This album came from such a genuine place. After everything I've been through, the health issues, becoming a father, just growing up in general, I had so much I wanted to say musically. Sarah Haynes leaned forward with genuine enthusiasm. The album is called Swag, which became a meme after your viral paparazzi moment. Was that intentional? Justin laughed, seeming genuinely amused rather than embarrassed. You know what? Life has taught me to own my moments, even the awkward ones. That whole standing on business thing became this huge joke online, but honestly, sometimes you have to stand on business. Sometimes you have to set boundaries, even if people don't understand it at first.
Sonny Hostin nodded approvingly. Speaking of setting boundaries, you've been very open about your health journey. How are you feeling now after your Ramsay-Hunt syndrome diagnosis? Much better, Justin said, touching his face gently. It was terrifying, honestly. Waking up and not being able to move half your face, it changes you. But I'm grateful for the experience in a weird way. It forced me to slow down, to really appreciate what I have, my family, my wife, my son Jack. Alyssa Fair-Griffin smiled. Being a new dad must be incredible. How has fatherhood changed you? Justin's entire demeanor softened. Everything. Literally everything. When you hold your child for the first time, all the noise just stops. All the criticism, all the pressure, all the stuff that used to keep me up at night. None of it matters anymore. What matters is being the best husband and father I can be. The conversation was flowing naturally. Justin seemed relaxed and genuine, and the audience was clearly warming up to this more mature version of the pop star they'd watched grow up in the public eye. But Joy Behar had remained conspicuously quiet throughout these pleasantries. She sat back in her chair with that calculating expression longtime viewers of The View recognized as a warning sign. Her arms were crossed, her eyes never leaving Justin's face, and there was something predatory in the way she was studying him. That's when she made her move. Justin, that's all very sweet, Joy interrupted, her voice carrying that sharp edge that immediately changed the atmosphere in the studio. But let's talk about your recent behavior on social media, because a lot of people are concerned that you might be spiraling again. The smile faded from Justin's face instantly. The warmth that had filled the studio moments before seemed to evaporate as everyone realized this wasn't going to be another friendly celebrity interview. I'm sorry, what do you mean by spiraling? Justin asked carefully, his media training kicking in, even as you could see his defenses rising. I mean the erotic posts, the concerning videos, the whole standing on business meltdown with the paparazzi. People who followed your career are seeing familiar patterns, the same kind of behavior that led to your breakdown years ago.
Justin's jaw tightened visibly. Joy, I think you're mischaracterizing a moment where I simply set a boundary with photographers who were harassing me while I was with my family. Harassing you? Joy's voice rose with skepticism. Justin, you're a public figure. You chose this life, and the way you handled that situation, the aggressive tone, the language you used, it looked exactly like the old Justin, the one who couldn't handle pressure. The other hosts shifted uncomfortably. Sarah kept looking between them like she was watching a car accident unfold. Sunny was fidgeting with her notes. Even Whoopi looked concerned about where this was heading. I'm not the same person I was at 19. Justin said, his voice getting tighter but still controlled. I've done the work. I've gotten help. I've grown up. Have you? Joy pressed relentlessly. Because your social media suggests otherwise. The cryptic posts about transactional relationships, the videos that look like you might be under the influence, the bizarre comments about your wife's success, that doesn't look like growth to me. Justin leaned forward, his eyes flashing with the first sign of real anger. Those posts were about setting healthy boundaries in my personal relationships, and I've never posted anything while under the influence of anything. Really? Joy's voice dripped with disbelief. Because there are videos circulating where fans are genuinely worried about your mental state, where you look confused, disoriented. Are you going to tell me those are fake? I'm going to tell you that being a new father is exhausting. I'm going to tell you that recovering from a serious neurological condition takes time. And I'm going to tell you that maybe, just maybe, judging someone's mental health based on a few seconds of video is incredibly irresponsible. The studio audience was completely silent now. This had gone from a friendly interview to something much more serious, much more personal, and everyone could feel the tension building. Joy wasn't backing down. Justin, I'm just asking the questions that your fans are asking, the people who care about you and don't want to see you go down the same dark path you went down before. What fans? Or are you talking about the tabloids that make money off my pain? Because real fans would support my growth, not tear me down for having human moments.
Joy sensed she had found a nerve and pressed harder. Justin, let's be honest here. You've struggled with substance abuse in the past. You've been open about your mental health issues. Given your recent behavior, are you getting the help you need right now? The question hit Justin like a physical blow. His face went pale, then flushed red. Are you seriously asking me about my medical treatment on live television? I'm asking because people are worried, Joy continued, her voice taking on a false note of concern. Your wife Haley has talked about how difficult it was to support you through your addiction issues. Your fans have seen you struggle before. They want to know if you're okay. Justin's hands were gripping the armrests of his chair now. My mental health is not entertainment for your show. My medical treatment is not a topic for public discussion. But your behavior is public, Joy fired back. When you post concerning content, when you act erratically in public, when you show signs that people recognize from your darker periods, that becomes public concern. Signs? Justin's voice was rising with incredulity. What signs? Setting boundaries with paparazzi? Being tired because I have a newborn? Making posts about wanting authentic relationships instead of fake ones? Those are signs of someone getting healthier, not sicker. Joy leaned back with a satisfied smirk. If you say so, Justin, but a lot of people who've watched you grow up in the public eye are seeing familiar patterns. The mood swings, the defensive behavior, the cryptic social media posts. It reminds them of 2014, 2017, all those periods when you were clearly struggling. Because God forbid I have emotions, Justin said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. God forbid I express frustration or set boundaries or have authentic human reactions to things. Everything has to be perfect all the time or people like you start diagnosing me on television. Speaking of authentic reactions, Joy continued, sensing blood in the water, let's talk about your marriage, because your recent posts suggest there might be trouble in paradise. Justin's face went completely white. Excuse me? The post about being tired of transactional relationships, Joy quoted with air quotes. The cryptic messages about having to do something to be loved. Your wife being photographed without her wedding ring. Are you and Haley having problems? My marriage is not up for discussion, Justin said, his voice deadly quiet. But you made it up for discussion when you posted about it, when you shared those concerning messages, when you made that bizarre post about telling Haley she'd never be on the cover of Vogue during a fight. That doesn't sound like a healthy relationship dynamic. Justin stood up slightly in his chair, his imposing frame becoming apparent. You're taking private moments and twisting them into gossip. That Vogue post was about me acknowledging my mistakes and celebrating my wife's success. Was it? Joy's voice was mocking now. Because it sounded like you were admitting to being emotionally abusive. I told her she'd never be on Vogue because I felt disrespected. That's not romantic, Justin. That's concerning.
You're completely misrepresenting what I said, Justin protested, his voice shaking with anger now. Am I? Because sources close to your marriage say you've been irritated easily and that Haley finds your behavior unacceptable. They're saying she's struggling with your mood swings and your lack of motivation. Does that sound accurate? Justin's breathing had become labored. What sources? What tabloid trash are you quoting now? Multiple outlets have reported that your marriage is struggling, Joy continued relentlessly, that you've been fighting more, that Haley is frustrated with your Instagram behavior, that friends are worried about both of you. Are you going to deny all of that? I'm going to deny that my private marriage is your business, Justin said, his voice cracking with emotion. I'm going to deny that gossip magazines know more about my relationship than I do. Joy switched tactics, her voice taking on a false note of sympathy. Justin, I want to ask you about your Ramsay-Hunt syndrome diagnosis. You said you're feeling better, but are you really fully recovered? Justin looked confused by the apparent change of subject. Yes, I've regained full facial movement. My doctors have cleared me for normal activities. But the emotional impact, having half your face paralyzed, having to cancel your tour, losing millions of dollars in revenue, that must have been traumatic. Are you dealing with the psychological effects of that trauma? Of course it was difficult, Justin said cautiously. Any serious health issue is traumatic, but I've worked through it with professionals. Have you? Joy's voice turned sharp again, because some medical experts say that Ramsay-Hunt syndrome can have lasting effects, not just physical, but psychological. Depression, anxiety, PTSD from the medical trauma. Are you experiencing any of those symptoms? Justin's face was cycling through confusion and anger. Are you trying to diagnose me on television? Are you a doctor now? I'm asking because your behavior since the diagnosis has been concerning. The social media posts, the erratic appearances, the marriage problems, could these be related to untreated psychological effects from your medical trauma? You're unbelievable, Justin whispered, shaking his head. You're literally trying to turn my medical condition into a reason to question my mental stability. I'm trying to understand why someone who says they're recovered is showing so many signs of distress. Your fans deserve to know if you're really okay or if you're just putting on a brave face.
And speaking of putting on a brave face, Joy continued, let's talk about fatherhood. You have a 10-month-old son now. Given your history of instability, your current concerning behavior, and your marriage problems, are you really ready to be a father? The question landed like a bomb. Justin's face went through a range of emotions, shock, hurt, rage, before settling into something cold and dangerous. Did you just question my fitness as a father? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than any shout. I'm asking if someone who's struggling with their own mental health, their own marriage, their own stability, should be responsible for a helpless infant, Joy continued, apparently not recognizing how far over the line she'd gone. You have no right, Justin said, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. I have every right to ask questions when someone in the public eye is displaying concerning behavior around a child, Joy fired back. Your son deserves a stable father. Do you think you're providing that right now?
Justin was breathing hard now, his chest rising and falling rapidly. My son has two loving parents who would do anything for him. Don't you dare use my child as ammunition in whatever sick game you're playing. It's not a game, Justin.
It's concern. Real concern from people who've watched you struggle before and don't want to see history repeat itself, especially now that there's a child involved who can't protect himself. Protect himself from what? Justin exploded. From having a father who loves him? From having parents who are working through normal relationship challenges? From having a dad who's human instead of perfect?
From having a father who might relapse, Joy said quietly, and the words hung in the air like poison.
And let's talk about this new album, Joy continued, sensing Justin was near his breaking point. This surprise release after years of silence. Is this a genuine creative comeback or a desperate attempt to stay relevant? Justin was staring at her with undisguised hatred now. It's music. It's what I do. Is it? Because you sold your entire music catalog for $200 million. Reports suggested you were in financial trouble. Is this new album about artistic expression or about needing money? I sold my catalog because it was a smart business decision, Justin said through gritted teeth. Was it? Or were you, as TMZ reported, on the verge of financial collapse? Are you trying to rebuild your career because you need the income to support your lifestyle? You have no idea what you're talking about, Justin whispered. Don't I? Let's look at the facts. You canceled your world tour, losing millions. You sold your catalog, suggesting financial pressure. You parted ways with your longtime manager, Scooter Braun. You haven't had a major hit since 2022. Now suddenly there's this surprise album and a new clothing line. That doesn't look like artistic integrity to me. That looks like financial desperation. Justin's hands were shaking now. I don't have to justify my business decisions to you. Maybe not to me, Joy agreed, but to your fans who've supported you for over a decade, the ones who bought your music, attended your concerts, defended you through all your controversies, don't they deserve to know if this is genuine Justin Bieber or just a cash grab? My music has always been genuine, Justin said, his voice cracking. Has it? Because this album title, Swag, comes from a moment where you looked unhinged yelling at paparazzi. That's not artistic inspiration, that's capitalizing on your own breakdown for profit.
Joy leaned forward for the kill. Here's what I think, Justin. I think you're the same troubled kid you always were, just older. I think the fame broke something in you that never got fixed, and now everyone around you is paying the price. Justin's breathing was rapid and shallow now. Stop! Your wife is struggling to hold your marriage together while building her own successful business. Your fans are watching you self-destruct in real time again. Your son is going to grow up with all of this documented forever. And you're sitting here pretending everything is fine. Stop, Justin said again, louder this time. You peaked at 16, Justin. Everything since then has been you trying to recapture that magic while the world watches you struggle with adulthood. Maybe it's time to admit that some people just can't handle this level of fame and responsibility. Stop! Justin shouted, his voice echoing through the studio. Joy smiled with satisfaction. The truth hurts, doesn't it? You're not the comeback story you want to be. You're not the stable husband and father you pretend to be. You're just another child star who couldn't grow up gracefully. You don't know anything about me, Justin said, his voice breaking with emotion. I know enough. I know that Haley deserves better than having to manage your mental health crises. I know that your fans deserve better than watching you repeat the same destructive patterns. And I know that your son deserves a father who can actually provide stability instead of chaos.
For a moment, the studio was completely silent except for Justin's labored breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with emotion, but somehow stronger than it had been all interview. You want to know what I know, Joy? I know what it's like to have your childhood stolen by people who saw dollar signs instead of a human being. I know what it's like to make mistakes in front of the entire world and have those mistakes follow you forever. Joy tried to interrupt, but Justin's voice rose with newfound power. I know what it's like to battle depression and anxiety while people like you turn it into entertainment. I know what it's like to fight addiction while tabloids bet on whether you'll survive. I know what it's like to try to build something real, something genuine, while vultures circle waiting for you to fail. His voice was shaking but clear. I know what it's like to love someone so much that you're terrified every day that your past will destroy their future. I know what it's like to hold your child and wonder if you're strong enough to protect them from people like you." Joy's confident smirk was starting to fade as she realized the audience wasn't with her anymore. "But you know what else I know?" Justin continued, standing up now. "I know that I've done the work. Real work. I've been to therapy, I've faced my demons, I've taken responsibility for my mistakes. I've built a marriage based on honesty and communication. I've created music that comes from my soul instead of from marketing meetings." His voice was building now, carrying the weight of years of pain and growth. "I know that I wake up every morning grateful for my wife, my son, my second chance at life. I know that I've used my platform to help other people struggling with mental health. I know that I've grown from a confused teenager into a man who's learning every day how to be better." But most importantly, Justin said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the studio, "I know the difference between someone who's trying to help and someone who's trying to destroy. And lady, you're not trying to help." The studio was dead silent. Even Joy seemed momentarily speechless. "You took my medical condition and turned it into a weapon. You took my marriage and tried to tear it apart for ratings. You questioned my fitness as a father based on tabloid gossip. You spent the last 15 minutes trying to convince me and everyone watching that I'm broken beyond repair." Justin's eyes were wet now, but his voice never wavered. "Well, I've got news for you. I am not broken. I am not the same scared kid I was 10 years ago. I am not going to let you or anyone else convince me that my growth doesn't matter, that my healing doesn't count, that my family doesn't deserve respect."
Justin began removing his microphone with steady hands. Each movement was deliberate, controlled, dignified. "Don't you dare walk away from this conversation," Joy said, desperation creeping into her voice as she realized she was losing control. Justin paused and looked directly at her. "This stopped being a conversation the moment you decided to weaponize my mental health struggles for entertainment." He continued working on the microphone, his movements calm despite the obvious emotion. "You know what the saddest part is? There are probably people watching this who are struggling with the same things I've struggled with. People dealing with health issues, relationship challenges, mental health battles. And you just taught them that their pain is entertainment, that their growth doesn't matter, that they should be ashamed of being human." Joy made one more desperate attempt. "Justin, you can't just run away when someone holds you accountable." "Accountable?" Justin's laugh was bitter but not angry. "Is that what you call this? Because accountability looks like honest questions about real issues. This was character assassination disguised as journalism." He turned to face the camera directly, and when he spoke, his voice carried the wisdom of someone who had fought real battles and won. "To anyone watching who's struggling with mental health, with addiction, with feeling like you're not enough, don't let anyone tell you that your healing doesn't count. Don't let anyone convince you that your progress isn't real because it's not perfect. Don't let anyone use your lowest moments to define your worth." His voice grew stronger, more confident. "I came here today to share music that means everything to me. Music that comes from the darkest places I've been and the light I've found on the other side. But instead, I got reminded why so many people are afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to admit they're struggling, afraid to ask for help." Joy tried one last interruption. "Justin, you can't just blame others for your—" "I'm not blaming anyone," Justin said simply. "I'm just choosing not to participate in a system that profits from human pain. I'm choosing to protect my peace, my family, and my mental health. I'm choosing to walk away from toxicity, which is something I never would have been strong enough to do 5 years ago." He placed his microphone gently on the chair, the simple gesture somehow carrying enormous weight. "Haley, Jack, if you're watching, Daddy loves you. I'm coming home. And to everyone else who's been on this journey with me, who supported my growth,
who believes that people can change and heal and become better, thank you. Your love means everything. With that, Justin Bieber walked off the set with the quiet dignity of a man who had nothing left to prove to anyone but himself.
The studio remained in stunned silence for what felt like an eternity. Joy sat frozen in her chair, looking smaller somehow, as if Justin's words had deflated something essential in her. The other hosts looked genuinely shaken. Sarah had tears in her eyes. Sunny was staring at the empty chair where Justin had been sitting. Even Whoopi, who had seen it all in her decades of television, looked disturbed by what had just unfolded. Finally, it was Alyssa who broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. I think we need to take a moment here. The studio audience, which had been silent throughout the confrontation, began to react. But instead of the usual talk show applause, there was something different in the air. People were wiping away tears. Others were shaking their heads in disgust. A few were actually standing up and leaving. You could hear scattered conversations. That was awful. He didn't deserve that. She went way too far. That poor kid. Joy finally found her voice, but it lacked all the confidence and aggression she'd displayed during the interview. We were just asking the questions that needed to be asked. But even as she said it, you could see in her face that she knew she had crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. For perhaps the first time in her career, Joy Behar looked genuinely uncertain about her actions. We need to go to commercial, Whoopi finally managed, her voice heavy with something that might have been shame. As the cameras cut away, the last image was an empty chair and 4 women trying to process what they had just witnessed, and what they had just been complicit in. And that's how Justin Bieber reminded the world that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. The 31-year-old singer proved that real growth isn't about being perfect. It's about knowing your worth and protecting your peace. Even if you've never been a Justin Bieber fan, you have to admit that no one deserves to have their mental health struggles exploited for entertainment. Joy Behar crossed every possible line, and Justin showed more class in his exit than she showed during the entire interview. What do you think? Did Joy go too far, or was Justin being overly sensitive? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more celebrity moments that will leave you speechless.